$50,000 in the S&P 500 or Vanguard's VOO ETF will crush your full-time job. By crush your full-time job, I mean that you can actually quit your 9-to-5 and retire off of completely investing in the S&P 500 from its dividends and capital appreciation with just $50,000. And just to show you that I actually have some skin in the game with VOO, I actually have over $50,000 invested in VOO, just over 100 shares in my taxable brokerage account, and I also have VOO in my Roth IRA that also makes up some money, so I have way over $50,000 invested in VOO, and the S&P 500 makes up the highest portion of my investing portfolio. And since there's so many S&P 500 funds out there in the stock market, I am not biased, and here's some of the best VOO alternatives if you are an S&P 500 investor like myself to buy and hold forever. And you could either own VOO as 100% of your portfolio or in a diversified portfolio with other ETFs in the mix. Because in this video, I'm going to give you a full and complete breakdown of Vanguard's VOO, why that $50,000 investing milestone is so important with some ways to get there as fast as possible, and finally, I'm going to bring out a dividend and compound interest calculator to show the results of investing $50,000 in VOO. So without further ado, let's get started. VOO is one of the most popular Vanguard ETFs and index funds that Vanguard has to offer, and it tracks the S&P 500 or 500 of the largest and best performing companies that represent the US economy. The great thing about an ETF, especially with VOO, is that not only do you own many different stocks in the index fund, you basically have exposure to every single sector in the stock market. Because of diversification, the risk of an ETF is going to be lower compared to buying an individual stock, where the risk is going to be way higher of actually losing money in the long run. Take buying Tesla, for example. Yeah, the performance of Tesla was great over the past 5 years, but over the past year, I would have lost money compared to just buying the S&P 500, which has actually made money and gone up significantly in the past decades, and in my opinion, will continue to go up well into the future. With that, VOO's performance is quite impressive, as posted over 14.51% returns annually since 2010, but a more accurate number is going to be its historical returns, posting over 10% returns since 1957. VOO has a low expense ratio of just 0.03%, awarding it an A+ perfect score by Seeking Alpha, so for every $10,000 that you invest in VOO, your expense is only going to be just $3. A lot of investors really sleep on the dividends of the S&P 500. Right now, VOO has a current dividend yield of around 1.3%. And many people think that just over a 1% dividend yield is going to be low, but that's just because the stock price of VOO has gone up dramatically and the annual dividends just keep on increasing as well, so this will inherently drive the dividend yield down when you plug in these metrics in a dividend yield equation. So if anything, this is a great problem to have of increasing capital appreciation as well as increased dividend payments, so you will make more money in the long run with VOO. According to Seeking Alpha, their quant rating rates VOO as a buy, and their ETF grade for VOO is as perfect as it gets all around, of at least an A rating in many different categories. Now, if we had $50,000 invested in VOO today and didn't invest another dollar, in 25 years we would have just over $623,000. Now, in 35 years, if we didn't invest yet again a single dollar, we would have over $1.7 million. And that's the power of investing in VOO because of its diversification, great returns, great dividend growth, that you will end up a multi-millionaire if you just have the time and patience to let your money grow over time and just be patient and not steer away from your strategy. But the goal really is to sacrifice your time to work hard and make smart financial decisions, like perhaps a cheaper car payment, cooking your own food at home, and not swiping that credit card a ton to get to $50,000 invested in VOO as fast as possible. And after $50,000 invested in VOO, that should light a fire in you to continue to invest in the stock market, because ideally you want to achieve multi-millionaire status. So you can perhaps buy a nice car, pay off your mortgage, and take those nice vacations, because inflation is only going up. So if you achieve $50,000 invested in VOO, and then you continue to invest your money in the stock market with something like $300 per month, or roughly $10 per day, then over the next 25 years, the ending balance is going to be over $1 million. And then in the next 35 years, that number is larger at nearly $3 million. And with that, the margin just gets way larger of total principal and total interest. That gap gets wider on your VOO investment to eventually become wide enough to retire off of investing in VOO. And I know it might sound way too good to be true, but when you hit those $50,000 or even $100,000 investing milestones in your ETF portfolio, you're not going to want to stop investing. Trust me, if I'm going to be honest, you're going to want to keep on investing because it gets pretty addicting. And why that $50,000 milestone is so important is not because of the $1 million that you see at the end of your investing journey, but because of this thing called compound interest. So your money makes more money every single year that goes by. When you reinvest your dividends, you just skyrocket your return potential in the long run. Now, if you want to achieve $50,000 invested in the S&P 500 as fast and reliably as possible, the first tip I would say is to, of course, increase your investment allocation. So if you start at $100 per month, maybe try to find a way to invest $200 per month and then $500 per month, and so on and so forth. Another tip is to buy the S&P 500 at better if not lower prices by DCAing or dollar cost averaging. So on huge red days like this, for example, of over a 1% drop in VOO, you can just buy shares at cheaper and lower prices. And when you do that, the dividend yield actually goes up with VOO. So you will not only get better prices for your dividend income, but you will also get the increased potential of higher returns in the long run. And that brings us to our dividend calculator, where I took the 10-year dividend growth rate, or CAGR, and all the necessary data metrics from Seeking Alpha, and then plugged them into this dividend calculator. So if you have $50,000 invested in VOO, and now if we assume dividend growth with a dividend calculator, over the next 30 years, your investment in VOO will total over $1.2 million, assuming dividend growth, of course, over $6,500 in annual dividend payments, and over $74,000 in dividends received over that 30-year time frame. But the real magic happens when you invest in VOO after that $50,000 milestone. So let's say that we invest $300 per month in VOO, and that comes out to just $10 per day, or $3,600 per year. We would end up with over $2 million in our investment in VOO, over $10,000 in annual dividend income, and over $113,000 in dividends received over the past 30 years. And how VOO would beat your full-time job and just crush it is basically because you would withdraw something like 4% of your total balance inside of VOO. So let's say we have $2 million invested in VOO. 4% of that is going to be $80,000. And then we're not even accounting for the dividends that we receive from VOO. So that's going to bump us at over $100,000 in total income that we could just spend on expenses and really retire off of investing VOO, and you can live the life of your dreams and be completely and fully financially free. And that's the power of investing in the S&P 500 or Vanguard's VOO. If you guys like this video, please give it a like, because this cute puppy did. And right here is going to be a video on S&P 500 investing, on my own personal investing journey, on how I invested in the S&P 500. And right here is going to be more about my own personal 3 ETF portfolios of over $100,000. I love you guys so much. Continue to crush in the stock market and take it easy. Peace.